everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello and welcome to the 5 Yard Rush NFL DFS show. I'm Mark, joined this week by Jord. Evening, Jordan. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Cheers, Mac. It comes around quick these weeks now, don't it? You know, when you get used to NFL season, and then you just keep fly by. But we've still got a while left, haven't we?
It's got a while. We've both had a half-term week as well. There's lots of people which will probably have as well, which means we might look slightly jaded today. Nick's not managed to make it. He's on his deathbed, so we're gonna do what we can to fill in for him this week. How did you get on last week, Jordan?
Yeah, I did. I think it's the first time I can say this. I did pretty well for a change on NFL. I stacked a Burrow and Chase, and obviously the wrong wide receiver, as you mentioned off stream. I went for Higgins when it could have been so much better for a Boyd, but hindsight's fantastic, isn't it? But it still did all right. It was one of them weeks where, like, not one of my lowest scores, but I've had higher scores, but I got into cash with a lot of them. Just even with Gallup scoring 0, that were, like I said, hindsight's brilliant, and so, but, you know, it can annoy you and stuff if you dwell on it. But yeah, Gallup were quite annoying. I think he got 2 targets and 0 catches, so could have been better, but still cash. So makes a change because it's normally college, and college was a disaster this week.
You can't have them both. The DFS gods won't allow you to do well in both. And you know, you're having a win on the old soccer as well this week, so you know, that's your lucky.
I can't complain. How about you, Mac?
I had the Tyler. It's the first week I haven't played Tyler Boyd in weeks. And then how many points did he get in that first quarter? I almost felt like turning Red Zone off there and then. Just thinking, just start planning for this week already.
I don't think he did much after that, did he? But it was just that first quarter where it was just did enough.
He didn't do much the weeks when I picked him either. But like, it was mad, isn't it? I feel like if you're going to play Cincinnati every week, you have 3 lineups with every combination of the receivers or something, don't you, to get them in? Yeah. So there you go. So that's good. So tonight it's probably we're gonna talk about the usual stuff. Showdown tonight, definitely some interesting talking points there, and then we'll talk about the main slate on DraftKings starting Sunday at 6 p.m. So tonight's showdown slate between the Ravens and the Bucks. I don't know about you, Jordan. I just kind of feel like they've been disappointing a bit fantasy-wise this year.
Yeah, I think definitely from fantasy-wise. And so I think last week's game were at least a little bit entertaining compared to the ones previous. You know, there were some points in it and there were some, turnovers and things like that. So it was an entertaining game, but still, not disappointing fantasy-wise unless you had, I think it was Hopkins and I think it was Olave. They were the two that picked up a lot of the points. And obviously the Cardinals defense.
It's hopefully this one you'd expect this to sort of get the Thursday night games going, but neither team's been scoring masses of points, I don't think.
No, it's just like at the start of the season you would have put this Thursday night game down as one that were really between two teams going for the playoffs, you know, playing well, and as well Ravens have had good spells, but they've struggled over the weeks, and obviously Bucks have been very poor. It's one of them. Do you look at it tonight and think Bucks are going to bounce back here and play the Bucks, or do you think it's just going to continue? It's a tough one. Which way you're going to side with? Yeah,
I think according to a friend of the show, Jack White is the play tonight. Fire emoji. They'll find him on the list.
Well, I think when I was looking at it, I had a quick look, and I think Ravens give up around about 90 yards a rush, and but they also give up about 45 per pass play, which obviously I haven't watched a lot of Bucks, but I feel like Rashad White's had a bit of the pass plays compared to Fournette and So I see that. I see it could be a game-winning play, really. If you've got the the main players in there alongside him.
Yeah, he's in that funny area as well where people don't tend to go for captains and stuff. That sort of price range. So yeah, it definitely would be a unique way, I suspect, to start a lineup. And how are you thinking about this as a whole? Are you expecting a close game? Are you thinking the Bucks come back?
I think I might sit on the fence here, but I do fancy. I don't know if it'll be I don't know how close it'll be, but I do fancy the Bucks to get a win. It could be an ugly one, it could. I think Andrews and Bateman are ready to play tonight. I think so. That's good for the Ravens. I'm not 100%. I haven't seen it, but as confirmed. But it did seem like they were going to suit up. I just felt something about the Bucks, and like you say, the white play. Russell Gage, you can see there's out. Julio Jones questionable, probably out because he always is, isn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So does that give you a third wide receiver there like Scotty Miller or? I've seen a few people post up today on Twitter the revenge game with Rashad Perriman.
Yeah.
So one of them two are going to stand out and make some plays.
Perriman only plays the last few weeks of the season, doesn't he? That's when he turns up when he's got a new contract coming. So I think it's interesting. And Mark Andrews last week sort of he was it was a real shock. I was all in on Andrews last week. Actually, I think I talked about on here about playing up at tight end and stuff. And he was like one of my most highly owned players. And he didn't do anything, but you'd expect him to bounce back because, he's a quality player. I'm approaching it from the point of view that the Bucks are going to just basically show us all that, class is permanent and all that. So I'm loading. If I'm playing one lineup, I'm loading up on Bucks players, basically, as many as I can kind of fit in. I think you also have to try and get Lamar Jackson in whenever he's in a showdown slate somewhere.
Yeah.
But the running back position should be interesting as well. Gus Edwards sort of came off of the injured reserve and got the sort of bell cow you don't generally see with the Ravens, do you?
No, like I say, I thought they might ease him in, to be honest with you. But yeah, every time I saw him on red zone, he was making big plays. Now we're thinking, is this going to be a guy that costs me? If a few people have played him and stuff and everything, but
yeah,
he can slow down a little bit at the back end. But he started off like a house on fire. Yeah,
I was just looking at that. I'm surprised he only had 18.6 fantasy points because it felt like he was on red zone all the time doing something, scoring some points, and it's just weird. That's been such a running back by committee backfield for so long. And Kenyon Drake did so well the week before. And then Gus Edwards did this. It was quite a surprise. I think there's plenty of question marks on the Baltimore side of where the fantasy points are going to go, which is why Andrews and Jackson are really the plays on that side, which is no great surprise. They're the most expensive.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, like Jack said, if you get Rashid White in there, or if you do fancy a Perriman or Scotty Miller, to step up, especially if Jones is out as well. I know K-Dot, you put K-Dot on there, he's done quite well, but I think he's quite a lot higher than I thought. Obviously, to be fair, he is the main tight end now, isn't he? Because Brady's injured. I think it's 5,000. Yeah. Brady seems to trust K-Dot, so I think they're quite low down in red zone. Giving up fantasy points to tight ends in the red zone, so it could be a player there. But I'm definitely with you. I think I'll be playing more Bucks players tonight. Probably edge away from Brady. Not playing him, to be honest with you. That could come back to haunt me and stuff. I just maybe play some of the playmakers around him because I think like I say, with limited tools that he's got tonight, it might end up, if you can play Goodwin and Evans, it might be good if you can fit them in.
Yeah, do you remember last week we said you couldn't possibly play Andy Dalton in the showdown? We could have got much more wrong than we did last week. Yeah. And he was the optimal captain, I think, in the end.
Even with, was it 2 or 3 turnovers he had?
I think it was. I couldn't believe it. And it's so rare for captains to be the optimal. Sorry, for quarterbacks to be the optimal captain as well. Lineups. And yeah, generally we got so much wrong that week. I feel we can only do better. I can't remember anything we got right. It was like we were messaging you, me and Nick afterwards. Anyway.
Yeah, Thursday nights aren't been good to me, so I'm hoping it changes. I'm hoping because I've had a steady week this week, Thursdays might be a bit better.
Yeah. Jack agrees with me. A $42 build. That's what I've got at the moment as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I'm on as well. It's just fitting in what you like as well on them for Bucks players, and getting the, like you say, like you say, you might have to pay down a couple on Bucks ones if you are going to get Lamar and Andrews in. I'm not sure what
if you're going to get Lamar and Andrews in.
Yeah, it could be tough, but
anyway,
play one of each.
Yeah, and or just create so many lineups you can cover them all. Okay. Okay, I think we've talked about that. I think if we talk any longer about it, we're just going to have more things we have wrong to talk about tomorrow. So, shall we move on to the main slate? Let me find the screen so I can share it. So where we need an advert break or something in. There you go. Here it is. Okay. So how many games is it? 11 games slate this week? Yeah, I think it's 11.
I think it was,
yeah. Yeah. With with the London game, another London game back, so more football to watch, which is nice.
All on an hour earlier as well, which is always good.
Yeah, it was. I remember when they used to the London games. When I used to go, they always used to be actually at the 6 o'clock time, in the evening. Same time as the start of Red Zone. And I always used to love the 5 o'clock one because it just made it so much easier getting home. It felt like. But now they play them at like 2:30 and 1:30. You guys have no idea how lucky you are. Anyway. Okay, so we do our usual run position by position. And get a lot of discussion based on that. And Jordan, where are we going for your first quarterback?
It is a risky one after his comeback from last week, but I have put Dak in just because I feel like a lot of people might move away from him because he wasn't. I think a lot of people were on him last week and he didn't perform to his best fantasy wise. Obviously, he did okay coming back from an injury after so many weeks. I'm hoping that he steps up again against a lot of people who might be going for Justin Fields as well, because Chicago Bears come out with a good win against the Patriots on Monday night. So I've kind of gone against that, where a lot of people might, because I think there's only Hurts that's on the slate that's quite high quarterback on, money wise and stuff. Well, or money as well. Sorry. So Dak's third. Is he 6?
Yeah.
6. Yeah. So I just think, with a lot of people edging away from him, potentially that we know what he can do, Dak, and if he did need a game to get a bit of rust off after missing 5-6 games, he could step up against Chicago Bears, who have. It's weird because it doesn't look like they give a lot of points up, but they've been in some weird games where the weather conditions and against average quarterbacks, and on his day, Dak is definitely not an average quarterback. No,
definitely not. It wasn't really a conducive environment for fantasy points for him anyway last week. They weren't exactly pushed. Detroit proved that on the road they're a very different team to at home. And it's an interesting point about the Justin Fields thing, isn't it? Because literally until last week he was being written off, and then he performed like he did. So it'd be good to see what happens with him this week. Obviously, he's coming up against a tough defense this week, though, and away from home. So.
I think I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Elliott's been ruled out. Now as well, like he was on question. So obviously you've got Pollard there who can run the ball, but he obviously does a lot of reception work as well. So that could help out as well to get some points on the mark.
Yeah. Pollard's season, as they say. Z-N. Susan. As ever, I was struggling to come up with a quarterback particularly to play. However, I did think it would be interesting to talk about. Where is he? I think you know where I'm going. I'll find the boy team.
Is it the one that's 4,000?
Yeah, that's it. 4,000. So obviously nothing on his game log or anything like that, but 4,000 for a starting quarterback against a generally poor Washington team, sounds like good value to me. What do you know about him anyway? In theory, you're meant to know more about him than I do.
I'm not his biggest fan, I must admit. He's a bit wild and stuff. He can make some good plays, but he also can do some. This is college as well, so obviously you hope they've matured coming into the NFL, especially a few years sat, but a couple of years sat behind quarterbacks. So yeah, he's a bit erratic at times, but he also has got potential, and it's one of them where I do get why people are playing, because sometimes when these guys come in, I'd love to know the percentage of guys who haven't played much or haven't played at all come in and how good they are in the first game. And sometimes they're absolutely brilliant in the first game and then they'll just go off the boil after, like, is that the case with Bailey Zappi, from started off brilliantly and obviously had a bit of a torrid game on Monday, like obviously we'll see. But so I get the play, and it's like you said, especially at that price, it gives you so many options at running back and wide receiver, which you don't normally get.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's I'm assuming these teams don't really have the film on them in that system, as it were, and that's why they suddenly do well and they get caught pretty quickly. Is he a running quarterback?
Yeah, he can run with the ball. He's not like what I remember him from Texas. He's not like a massive runner, but he can run the ball if he needs to. Like in the situation. But yeah, I wonder how much into play that the running backs will come into play for college. Now we've obviously Taylor back, who's been poor, but even Hines as well. Maybe Hines is a good player, but like I say, you're not going to get that again. Well, unless someone goes down injured, and normally your backup is a little bit more than 4,000 as well. They've got normally a decent backup. So I can't remember how much Heineke was.
Yeah, Nick Foles is 5,000 on there. So the reason I think he's an interesting player is just because the quarterback position as a whole is pretty not uninspiring. You've still got Jalen Hurts, who's a top. You haven't got like last week where you had Allen and Mahomes, and I'm probably missing somebody else. But anyway, it feels like even if, as he's 4,000, even if he only scores like 16 points or something like that, he's not going to be so far behind all the other quarterbacks. It's going to hamstring him massively. So definitely an option.
It's one of them where it's like you said, it is a bit uninspiring the quarterback, and obviously for how well Jalen Hurts has played, I'm not saying the wheels are going to come off, but there is going to be a game soon, you'd think, where they just struggle on offense, and Pittsburgh have played pretty hard these last 2 weeks against and been obviously one against Tampa Bay, and I can't remember the other one who they beat, where they were written off after a bad week, and they've kind of stepped up a bit there.
And also,
can't remember.
And Hurts has scored like 16 points in 2 of his last 3 games. So if you imagine, say, Sam Ehlinger scores 12 for his 4, then he's still better value than Jalen Hurts, as it were. Definitely an interesting choice. I suspect I haven't seen any sort of ownership figures now, but I suspect he might be relatively high owned. Ehlinger at 4. That's definitely cash games, I would think.
Yeah. For that price, I think a few people would do that and then dive into wide receivers and running backs, because the wide receivers, especially, a lot of the big boys are back out there after a bye week.
Well, it's very smooth segue onto running backs. Move on to running backs. Christian McCaffrey's got his 49ers team designation there. Not as expensive as we've seen, I don't think. But anyway, and definitely not as expensive as the wide receivers. Who are you thinking about here, though?
Well, I'm a bit similar to you, Alex. I've paid up at running back. There's a few other guys but I've gone for Barkley, and obviously Barkley's been great this season. But obviously, as a Seahawk fan, I've seen what running backs do against the Seahawks, and especially Eckler on Sunday. Even though Seahawks won, Eckler had a lot of the running play, but he really hit us hard in receiving, and I feel like they might lean on Barkley even more this week, because they've got I think Jack's a Giants fan as well, isn't he? But speaking to a Giants fan, I think they've got quite a lot of injuries. A lot of the tight ends, the main tight ends out. I'll look at the 2 tight ends. I've never heard of them, the 2 that have stepped up, because Bellinger's out. Obviously, Tony's gone today, wasn't getting in, but two or three wide receivers they've got, so they might lean on Barkley even more. And they probably saw what Eckler did against Seattle. It is a tough place to go, Seattle, but if they can get a win at Seattle and the way that they're playing as well, it'll be a big win for the Giants, and Barkley could be that guy to get them over the line.
Yeah, I think they give up the 5th most points to the running back position, Seattle, and one of those teams isn't even playing this week. So yeah, it makes them 4th on this slate. So yeah, I think I do like that play. It feels like the running backs are back completely. We talked about that briefly last week, didn't we? But at the beginning of the season, it felt like paying up a wide receiver was the way to go. But running backs seem so many options at the top to me.
Yeah, I've got it written down here. They give up over 100 yards rushing and 50 yards receiving to running back Seahawks. So not great.
Yeah. The great thing about Barkley is it doesn't matter what position the Giants are in. Whether they're ahead, behind by a lot. Not that we've seen them behind much this year. They all seem to use him. So yeah, it'd be interesting because he's basically the offense. I've gone for another obvious pick as well. I've gone for Derrick Henry this week. Haven't talked much about him this year. He just feels like he's quite quietly and surreptitiously just been back to his best, and nobody seems to particularly be talking about it. But this week in particular, he's playing the worst defense against, giving up fantasy points against the run. And also his last 3 games against the Texans are ridiculous. Over 200 yards each game and 2 or 3 touchdowns each game. So I feel like he's almost too obvious a play.
Yeah, I must admit I do like Henry as well, and I feel like you're right. I think he's going to get fed the ball. See how many attempts he's had, and obviously he's had a few 100-yard games, and he's done pretty well. He just, for some reason, people have just. I think it's because you look at the average of like some of his games, average per run and stuff, and it's not as high as you want, but it doesn't matter. You're not getting paid. You're not getting points for how many times he carries it. You're getting it for how many yards he's getting in touchdowns, and he's doing pretty well. Like you said, against a Houston team that's got a worse run defense than Seattle, which is saying something. I watch Seattle every week, and they're terrible. So I don't know how bad Houston are.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away his first 2 weeks and stuff, where he's still coming back a little bit from injury, his usage is down and stuff. It's just 25, 26, 30, and 19. Just fantastic numbers. I've actually, November is Derrick Henry's season as well, so I put him into my fantasy season long lineup as well for this week. He seems like an obvious player. I'd love to be able to find a lineup I like, starting with Henry and Barkley. That would just be fantastic, wouldn't it? But maybe we'll try at the end of the show.
We'll get Ellinger in and gives you a chance.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I did say I like the lineup I like. I just thought he was a good talking point. That was all. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Unless there's anybody else you specifically want to talk about the running backs.
I think it's a chance one and stuff, and you could probably play him in tournament where, because I think it's one of them where like depends, like obviously Robinson going over to the New York Jets, but I think Carter, like I know a lot of people have gone off him in fantasy, when Breece Hall came in, but it's one of them plays where it's like, yeah, it might not come off, but if Carter does get a lot of the plays and gets a lot of the receiving work, I think the Patriots don't give a lot of touchdowns to running backs, but they do give up a lot of yards and a lot of receiving yards to thingy. So it could be a chancy play that could pay off, and if not, you just play James Robinson week after.
Yeah, I mean, how much work do we think James Robinson's really going to get?
That's what I mean, because he's coming like you don't normally see the guys take many. Like obviously he'll have some snaps and stuff, but he's not going to learn the offense unless you're Christian McCaffrey, who got the playbook on the plane over when he went over to the 49ers apparently. But even then, he didn't he had some work, but he still shared a lot of it with Wilson. So I'd thought Carter would take up a lot of the share of the work still.
What was the best stories about people on planes this week as well? We've had McCaffrey with his playbook, Russell Wilson with his exercising on the way over to London.
Yeah,
we just do the third now, don't we? To complete the old trifecta. I think I had Michael Carter in there right at the beginning of the week, but then I kind of got off him a little bit. I'm kind of interested. You mentioned Naheem Hines. I'm kind of, because they're playing against Washington, I'm kind of interested in him. But also, a couple of cheaper players who seem to be getting a lot of work. Tyler Algier seems to get a lot of work at the moment. He doesn't really do much with it, particularly right now. But that may well change this week. And also Brian Robinson back from his shooting. He's had 17 and 20 attempts last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I feel that Gibson probably stole some touchdowns from him last week or whatever, some points from him last week.
Yeah, we mentioned like watching Red Zone with Gus Edwards and so, and every time I saw Red Zone, it seemed to be Antonio Gibson doing something. And then when I looked at the stats, Brian Robinson had more rushing yards, obviously not the touchdowns, but he had more rushing yards and more handoffs than him. So one of them again where I thought, Gibson got a lot more of the work again, but it's not. It's still Brian Robinson.
Yeah, another one to look down here because they both look good was Hubbard and Foreman. Both look good. Hubbard's on the injury report. He still hasn't practiced this week, so maybe Foreman will be the guy. And that's was 20 points without a touchdown as well last week. So
against a Bucks defense who were normally pretty good against the run as well. So I don't know if that's just because it were a really bad day at the office, but they both played really well. Both low, not much money either, are they? So.
No, again, I said to you last week, I feel like I want 4 or 5 running back slots this week. There's so many good choices. I think both that price range at the top. Anyway, moving on. You talk about expensive. Onto the wide receivers, and I think you're talking about an expensive one this week.
Yeah, Devontae Adams. New Orleans they're playing the New Orleans Saints, the Raiders. But I think there was just 1 week where I think he had quite a few of the targets. He just didn't make a lot of the catches. But every week he's getting targeted the highest easily. And obviously this could be another one of them shootouts with the Saints, because obviously we know that the Raiders give up a lot of points themselves. I think they're quite low down in how many points they give up to wide receivers. So it could be a nice little double play here where you've got like Adams and then obviously one of maybe Olave on the Saints side and stuff, where you could have a nice back and forth, even Kamara, I suppose, and Adams. Because I think even if I can't see Vegas getting out too far in front, so even if they're playing catch up, Adams is always going to be in play and he's always going to be a high volume target guy. So just with the game with Saints, I like that game to be quite high scoring and quite close.
Olave and Adams does seem like a really nice little stack. Completely, they're both in the top 10 for giving up points to wide receiver. So that's feel good. I think the other thing about it is about this is he's like 1,000 less than Cooper Kupp, which I get. But even Cooper Kupp has his 16-point weeks and stuff. And I think, am I right in thinking the 49ers have the Rams number?
Yeah, it's we normally have the 49ers. The Rams, the 49ers have the Rams, and the Rams have us. That's how it works. There's your trifecta. And
it's a shame Nick's not on here to tell us more about how the Niners always have the Rams number.
I think he got 100 yards against the Fox. They've played already this year. 49ers won. He's still got 100 yards, but I don't know how many points he ended up with.
Got 29 points, Cooper Kupp then. Because he got targeted so much. Yeah, so I do like Devontae Adams. I do like him with Olave as well. Player I want to talk about, rather uninspiringly, DJ Moore. We saw last week PJ Walker came in as quarterback, and nobody's expecting him to be able to support any fantasy relevant players. But DJ Moore still got his 10 targets. He's been pretty consistent with his targets all year. Some touchdown regression, to the positive touchdown regression as well. And a 5-3, is this a chance for us finally to see? I mean, how often does it happen when you change the quarterback that suddenly a player you expect to do well suddenly starts doing well? It just happens all the time. And I think nobody's expecting anything from Carolina at all. So I think this might be one of the lowest you're going to get him. And also, probably should have mentioned this to lead it off, Atlanta give up the most points to the wide receiver position. So yeah, I don't play DJ Moore very often, but this is a week I'm definitely going to.
No, I like that call. Like I said, he was clearly the main target for PJ Walker, and obviously, if that connection keeps up, then it's still the main guy. And I do like DJ Moore. I think it was just last year where with Sam Darnold, and we know we can speak about how we think of Sam Darnold. He was putting up ridiculous numbers early on, and he's a good guy to have that puts up yards after the catch. You know, a lot of people slate DJ Moore, but I think he's actually a good player. He's just been put in bad situations for a few years now. But I'm not saying PJ Walker's tons better, but it worked last week against Tampa Bay, so you're just thinking it works again, and he's a decent price again.
Yeah, it's a PJ Walker. DJ Moore's that player always gets sort of steam on the Twitter during draft season, doesn't he? Yeah. Always, and yeah. But yeah, I just think his price. I don't 5'3". Yeah. He seems. I know he's been low in that last few. Certainly, if you think about the last few seasons, he's never. This must be as low as he's been for the last couple of seasons, price wise and stuff. He's always a popular choice. But yeah, I think. Anybody else low priced or anything you're interested in? Or
I think I've got another guy low price, but I think obviously Waddle and Hill are going to be because they're playing the Lions out there. They're going to be well targeted. Depends who you're playing, but obviously I mentioned Barkley and New York Giants going to Seattle, and obviously Marquise Goodwin came off 2 touchdown game against the Chargers. Obviously, but still. We don't know if DK is going to play or not. It's looking likely he might not play, but they haven't ruled it out yet. But especially if DK Metcalf don't play, Marquise Goodwin could become a good player. And I think he's 4-4. I think he's
4-4. Yeah,
it's not the worst wide receiver. Like I say, I don't know what he finished with last week, but he did have 2 touchdowns.
No, 22 points last week in the end.
Yeah, not bad.
Definitely his best performance of the year. I think I had him in showdown on that game. I think I know I was pretty pleased when he scored. That could be a good shout because I think that game. It wouldn't surprise me if that game is actually pretty high scoring, and there's a lot of back and forth going on there. And I think at that price 4-4, especially if Metcalf does end up being out.
Yeah, that's the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a cash game play almost at that price. 4-4. It's just definitely. I do like that shout. There was somebody else I wanted to talk about quickly. Where are we looking? Another Pickens. That was who it was. I think he's very underpriced. When you look at his the last 3 of his last 4 games, the scoring and stuff. And, you know, anybody who watches him can see the talent's there. The issue has been this season, has always been quarterback play. The talent's there. I just think at 4-7, he's just way underpriced. And I think, obviously, part of that will be coming up against the Philly defense, I guess.
Yeah, but like I say, Kenny Pickett seems to like him as a target, don't they? You know, definitely.
Yeah, he's I just think he's underpriced. So yeah, and we're going to need him because we're going to be playing up for all these running backs.
Get them to win.
Yeah, and Wan'Dale Robinson is now the man in New York. Now he's back. You know, decent targets last week. Didn't really do masses with it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I played him in a game, and I were hoping he'd get a bit more after last week, but obviously not. But he's still they must obviously with them letting Tony go. Obviously, they must like him, you know, because he's a similar player to how he plays with Tony, you know, like out of the slot and stuff. So you must like him there. I think another one that I had written down actually, again, depending on injury. St. Brown went out injured for the Lions, didn't he? I don't know how he's looking for this week, but he seemed to depends how much you trust Goff after last week, but he did go to Raymond. A lot, I think, ends up with a 100-yard game off maybe only 3 or 4 catches, but I think he's only 4-3.
Yeah, at that price, everybody loves Raymond.
You got that one in, yeah.
Yeah, just wait 8 weeks to do that. All reports at the moment, they're saying that Amon-Ra St. Brown should be back.
Is it? Okay.
Because he didn't actually have a concussion last week, but the new protocol, basically because of what happened to Tua, is that he got pulled out of the game very early after 1 catch, even though he didn't actually have a concussion.
Yeah. He's a good player as well. Then if he is back,
and his price is
Shark's out, aren't they?
Shark's out. There's not much. I mean, DeAndre Swift is back for them.
Oh,
He's not on the injury report at all. So I think, that game's expected to be a shootout anyway. And I actually do like stacking it from a Goff point of view, just because he's cheaper and he's so far this year, his record at home has been pretty fantastic fantasy-wise. So yeah, I think most people look to do Tua in that stack. So yeah. Anyway, moving on to the tight end position, which is very uninspiring. I struggle every week anyway to talk about tight ends, but it's particularly uninspiring this week. Please give me some hope here, John.
I think I just put Conklin down again because he's someone that did all right for me in past. But I think New England are 30th in red zone points to tight ends. And Conklin's still a good target for Zach Wilson. So yeah, it's like you. I'm not massively inspired by the time position. I think again, if you're looking at Seattle, give up ridiculous amounts of numbers to tight ends, points, and obviously with their main tight end down, you might have to scroll down for this guy. And I'm probably pronouncing him wrong because I'll admit I haven't heard of him. For the Giants, he's 2'8" and he's called Myrick. I think I'm sure Jack can correct me. Myrick, I think. Myrick, is it?
No, I've never heard of him before. I'm just gonna,
But that's just mainly because Seahawks are pretty bad against tight end, and I think I've seen everyone play. The Cardinals are even worse against tight ends, and I think everyone will be playing Irv Smith Jr. Right sounds of it on Twitter. So maybe stay away from him.
Because he could definitely not end up getting many targets in that offense. He's a 3rd-year pro, this guy. There you go.
He'll be well known after Sunday when he's scored a couple of touchdowns against us.
So you can start your lineups with him and Sam Ellinger. And then, you can pretty much buy whoever you want after that.
It's going to be a memorable week, ain't it, with some of these plays?
Yeah, it's I thought. I mean, I haven't even got anybody down on the show sheet here, but I actually, Juwan Johnson is actually still getting targets for, which kind of, he got a bit of luck with some positive touchdown regression last week. But he's been getting for a price of 3.2, he's been getting targets. And I think the Raiders are pretty terrible. They give up a lot of fantasy points to the tight end position. So I think another punt down there if you want it. I feel quite confident about his targets. Quickly talk about New Orleans. Who's starting a quarterback this week for New Orleans?
I feel like I saw some of that Dalton's starting again this week, which again I don't actually mind the Dalton play at quarterback because, like I say, the Raiders aren't great against the pass, especially against wide receivers. And I think he's 5'5", and like you said, he's not even good against tight ends as well. I think just defending the pass, they're not great at. And
no, they're not.
Like I think, like Houston have struggled this year, and they did okay against them. Nico Collins went out injured, but I think for all the stick Dalton gets, he's a better quarterback. And apart from the turnovers last week, like you said, he put up good points.
Yeah, the only worry I got this so wrong last week as well, is the fact that if he starts doing badly, will he get pulled for Winston? But then he didn't last week with all the turnovers. So maybe it's his team now for the time being.
Yeah, I think like one of them should have been caught by my receiver, and then one just followed straight after it with like a mad few minutes before halftime, which kind of got the game away from the Saints. But I don't mind him turning over the ball if he's going to throw that many touchdowns and yards.
Yeah, well, if you throw pick sixes as well, they get the ball back straight away. So, like, that's kind of handy. Anyway, on to the. I think we've done that terrible tight end position more justice than it deserves. So we move on to another favourite, DST. You haven't particularly put down to speak about anybody. I think the obvious cheap play is Washington because they're up against the rookie quarterback. Anybody else down here particularly?
I always like from tips from you and Nick. I always try and aim for down the bottom, but a little bit further up. Maybe the Panthers again against Atlanta, or the Jets. Jets are playing well, and obviously both New England Patriots quarterbacks didn't put themselves in glory, did they, against the Bears on Monday? So I don't know who's starting out there, but the Commanders could be a good one with Ellinger. Yeah,
because they're quite good against the run anyway. They always have been for a few years now and stuff. It's the pass which lets them down at the back, the back seven. But I think, and having said that, number of times I've watched Washington make these rookies look like they're the next Joe Montana or something. It's so frustrating. I do think though, if you want, I say we tend to play down cheaply, but if you want to make your line up different from the get-go and change your roster construction, just pick the Cowboys or the Eagles, or the Falcons even at the beginning, because then you're forced to pay for a different type of player in your other rest of your position. So, anyway,
Titans as well up at top. They've done pretty well on. They've helped because, like I say, for all the good work Henry's done, Tannehill. I think actually Tannehill's out this week, isn't he? So,
is he out? Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's like. Sure, I saw somewhere that he's out. It's potentially out.
He's a limited participant on Thursday, so
the better hope he's not out because Malik Willis hasn't shown much when he's coming.
Yeah, okay. So should we let's try and build a lineup now? I just want to see if we can even do this. Let's do a Henry Barkley start, okay? And then let's put in old.
It just makes me laugh looking at all the quarterbacks around Ellinger.
Yeah, well, they're not playing though. Let's see. I'm just putting in all the cheapest players that we've talked about so far. You Tyler Conklin, he's 3-2, the same as Juwan Johnson I mentioned.
It still gives you.
That gives you a decent amount, doesn't it? If you put in,
if you put DJ Moore in as well.
And we had somebody else down here as well you were talking about. Yeah. We can have, let me just see, we'll see what happens if you do that. 3/8's a very low amount for your flex, but it's all doable. If you put, Olave and Adams in as a little mini stack, as you talked about. You don't have to have them open.
It's definitely like you said, even whichever wide receivers you go, it's doable to have a decent line, having Barkley and Henry in there, something that you're not ridiculously unhappy with. Like just that there, obviously a lot of people are going to play in Ellinger anyway, and if it comes off, it's great. That's the only thing that, like saying, if you're playing cash games, a lot of people will probably play in Ellinger.
Yeah, and you can put in Pollard as well if you want to as a third, as he's got no competition for backfield touches now, has he?
No.
That gives you 6,000 again. So you have Olave in there if you want it, and then anyone from here really. So not too bad really. I was surprised about that. Yeah. Okay. Let's just do one more though. Something a little bit more traditional. Let's try. Should we put a Dak in? Who would you stack Dak with?
Well, obviously, I'm not going back to him again because he'll probably end up being good this week, Gallup. But it depends if you want to pay up. Obviously, there's Lamb, but Noah Brown keeps getting. But that's why I was surprised with last week. I thought Gallup because last year Gallup was a favourite target at Dak, and obviously that's why I thought I'd just go back to Gallup again if he used to, but he didn't. But even Schultz got a lot of targets last week with Dak back, and Noah Brown still got quite a lot.
Yeah, he didn't practice on yesterday. I haven't seen the report for today.
We'll play Gallup then. If he's not playing, play Gallup.
But yeah, I'll put him in at the moment though. I'll put him in for the moment. Well, now I think I'll put your Devontae Adams in for definite. Nice to stack him opposite with Kamara, wouldn't it?
One of the top running backs, and then either Hubbard or Foreman, whichever you fancy, or if Hubbard's not playing.
That's a good point. Forgot about him. I think Foreman's the most likely to be playing.
Yeah, he did well with what he had as well. I think Hubbard had, I can't remember which way around this one, but one of them went out injured. Probably Hubbard if he's questionable, and I think Foreman ended up getting a bit more at the back end.
Yeah,
but he did look. I mean, if he only needs another touchdown on that, it's nice.
Oh, it's and as I say, I was just double checking. No, it wasn't. It was.
Which other tight ends did we have that were Johnson? For the.
Yeah, that's the same price range, isn't it? We didn't really talk about the expensive ones at all. Like George Kittle's been finally getting some targets. That's nice. Whether that continues now that Christian McCaffrey's there, I imagine the offense might change a slight bit. They're all much, aren't they, though? Irv Smith Jr. is the popular play this week, isn't he?
Yeah. I think a lot of people will be going in because Cannell's not very good stuff. Johnson did well with his squad, didn't he? I think that's you said we got them all wrong. I think Nick mentioned Johnson, and he did all right on the Thursday night. That's one out of how many we chose.
Yeah, how many minutes we talked about it. I mean, again, we've ended up with 6,000 again. If I just put Washington in, we've ended up with 6,000 again. So there you go. And Brandon Cooks might get traded as well before Sunday. So
yeah,
I think that's.
Yeah, you could do two decent plays that way with that.
Yeah, I think. I think there's lots of different ways you can build your lineup this week. We just did a three decent running back lineup there. I did rely on having Ellinger in there, but equally we ended up at the end of it with like $6 million to spend, and of course, on wide receiver we didn't have to have that much to spend on wide receiver. We could have gone up to Jalen Hurts or something like that, and we'd have had less. So
yeah, whatever you want to do from position wise, to pay up at, you're still going to have some quite strong options. Wide receiver, running back, or if you want to pay down to go for Ellinger, you can have quite a strong running back core or wide receiver core. It's however you want to play it looks good until until it starts until the game starts on Sunday. We were so confident last week and stuff and all that. So I wonder if paying up a tight end again is going to be the way to get different, because there's so many options in tight end. I have to look at that in more detail. Well, there you go. There's another one done. Week 8 is upon us tonight. Any final thoughts, Jordan, before we go? Just by the looks of it, don't listen to us on Thursday night, please, and go against what we said. It's not positive, that is it, for our final thought?
That should really be the last thing we say, should it? Yeah. Hopefully we'll all be back next week, fighting fit, and hopefully see you all at the top of the leaderboards.